Hello friends, welcome to UPSC CSE in English. Let's crack it with Unacademy. I'm Siddhi Bangard, your educator and mentor. So let's start with today's session. So briefly about me, I have 3 years cumulative teaching experience and I did my graduation from BIT Mestra Ranchi. I've appeared in 4 mains in an interview and I did my post-graduation from XLRI Jamshedpur. So this is the best time, folks, to be a part of our India's largest platform, that is Unacademy, and get a subscription because we have the topmost educators. We provide you with daily live classes. We provide you live tests and quizzes and also notes at the end of each session. All our courses are structured in line with the exam syllabus so that you can best prepare for your exams. And finally, we provide you with unlimited access with just one subscription, that is access to all the recorded, live and upcoming courses. With that, I would like to tell you our fee structure. So our fee structure or a 1-year subscription costs you around 44,000, which is less than 4,000 per month, and the cost is further reduced to only less than 40,000. If you use my code Siddhi Bangard at Unacademy Plus, you get an instant 10% off. And for a 2-year course or a 2-year subscription, the cost of which is less than 3,000 a month, the cost is reduced from 64,000 to less than 58,000. If you use my code Siddhi Bangard at Unacademy Plus, you get an instant 10% off. And we also have no cost EMI available on our 6-month, 12-month and 24-month subscription. So it's very easily available. So be a part of our development journey. Now, coming to today's topic, Sino-India face-off. Are we at the verge of war? Because there's a lot of aggression at the border, India-China border, which has been quite peaceful. Not even a single bullet has been fired since 1962. So what now? What has happened all of a sudden? Let's study that. So first, I would like to set the expectations of today's class. What are we going to study? And how are we actually going to understand the crux of the issue, what has happened? Because this face-off is not just a normal face-off that we have had in the past, whether about the Depsang plains in 2013 or the Chamar plains in 2014 or a very recent 2017 Doklam crisis, which was the 70-day standoff, even when their president Xi Jinping was in our country. So how are we going to go about it? We'll first understand the disputed border areas between India and China. All right. Then we will understand what are the implications in the western sector where the current happenings are happening. Okay. We will also understand where the present disputed areas are, the Pangong Tso Lake and the Galwan Valley. Where are they? Why are they important? We will study that. Post which we will discuss a timeline on how we actually reached the position we are in. Why did it actually happen? Were there signals in the past that could have actually told us that this was about to come? We might not have been so shell-shocked and maybe we might have saved a few Indian lives at the border. And lastly, how has Galwan happened and what actually happened there? Finally, we will discuss the mechanisms or what have we been doing to diffuse the tensions. So the diplomacy post the killings at the border, and finally the way forward. Here we will also try to understand, could this have been avoided? Was it lack of intelligence or was it lack of anticipation on our part, or is it again a repeat of 1962 when China ditched us and lost our trust completely, and since then the distrust has been growing? So is it a second repeat of the same incident? So we'll see all that in this video today. With that, let's start first with the disputed areas as I just mentioned. So there are 3 disputed areas between the India-China border. The border length approximately is 4,056 kilometers as per the geography. But the border is actually not well defined. You actually, in fact, funnily enough, there is no exact border length because as per India, the line of actual control is approximately 3,500 kilometers. However, as per China, it is only approximately 2,000 to 2,500 kilometers. Can you see the variations in the border length? So we don't even have a well-defined border with China, our largest neighbor and one of the largest Asian powers and a superpower in making. So this is actually a major tiff between the two nations. We do not even have well-defined boundaries. Okay. This is the first thing. The second thing is, where are these disputed areas? So along the line of actual control about which both India and China have different perceptions, there are approximately 23 disputed areas. We will in a later part of the video see if the Galwan Valley or the Pangong Tso Lake were actually a part of these 23 disputed areas or not. This is an important point to remember, so please remember this. There is McMahon line in the east, that is the Arunachal region, and the central sector in the middle, that is this region, the Uttarakhand and Himachal region. So there are basically 3 points of disputes. The western sector or the Aksai Chin, which is also right now the current point of dispute. The central sector, where disputes flared up, but we haven't heard anything more. And the Arunachal sector, which was highly in use during 2013 when China started stapling the visas to Arunachal or Tawang. Now, when we talk about this border, so what are the traversing or the areas that this border traverses? One Indian Union territory of Ladakh, 4 Indian states of Uttarakhand, Himachal, Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh. As you can see, Arunachal, Sikkim, which comes in the eastern sector, Uttarakhand and Himachal in the central sector, and of course the Union Territory of Ladakh or the state of Jammu and Kashmir in the northern sector or the western sector. So primarily the border is divided into 3 sectors: western, middle and eastern. Okay, please remember these sectors because I will be using them as a point to indicate that we kind of knew that this might happen. Okay, so in the western sector, what are the disputed areas? So as we can clearly see, we only have a very small part of Jammu and Kashmir with us. This part has been occupied, the Aksai Chin part has been occupied by China since 1962. The rest of the northern region is actually occupied, or POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. This is the area ceded to China by Pakistan. And again, this glacier or this small part, which is a very strategic location, it is still occupied by India. Here, I would also like to point out one more important thing in the Aksai Chin region. There is a presence of a very, very important mountain pass in this region nearby this Siachen glacier, which is the Karakoram Pass. Please remember its position. Because it is only near the Karakoram Pass that we have the Daulat Beg Oldie, a name you must have been hearing so much in news. It is one of India's highest air bases which had been lying dormant till 2008, and then we started refurbishing this sector because we wanted to build army infrastructure in the Ladakh region, because it's a very, very strategic point because it's near to a mountain pass. Why is the mountain pass area very, very strategic when it comes to geography? Because mountain passes are very, very narrow areas, so only one party can come in. So the party which is at a higher position, in our case China, it can easily come into India from that pass. So we really need to protect this pass, and we do it through Daulat Beg Oldie Air Base. And this airbase is actually very strictly linked to our current flare off, or why the things happened that were happening since last 1 month. All right. So going further, what were the disputed areas? These disputed areas have been identified over the last 30 years between the India-China boundary issues, and this is from the article in Indian Express on the first page. The data has been taken from there. Now, I will not go through the entire table, but what is important for us today is that in 2020 and even in the previous sections, because since our current dispute is in the western sector, here you can see nowhere apart from 2020 it is written there that Pangong Tso is in dispute, but Galwan is nowhere mentioned as a point of dispute. Can you see it here? That's why I said remember if it is a point of dispute or not. So that means there was no dispute at all. Then why are we fighting? Is it cheating on the part of China to actually fight us on a point which has not been even identified as a disputed area? We will see in the later part of the video. Now, with that, let's go to the next part. This is the satellite imagery of the Pangong Tso Lake. Okay. Pangong Tso actually means an elongated lake. Pangong Tso Lake. It's a satellite imagery, so you actually cannot see the picture more clearly, but this is how. The fingers in the Pangong Tso Lake have been in news for a lot of time. The first finger, the second finger, the third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, sixth finger, seventh finger, and so on. Now, till the fourth finger, actually, India occupies, or it is the LAC area. India occupies this lake. The southern part of the lake is actually occupied by China. The northern part is occupied by us, and hence the southern bank of Pangong Tso Lake, sorry, the northern bank of Pangong Tso Lake was in dispute. Why was it in dispute? Because this area, the finger 4 area, was up till now being patrolled by the army. But suddenly Chinese actually came in and they made a bunker and a moat here. Moat means around the bunker, you built a deep area wherein water is filled. Now, with that, they actually stopped the Indian patrolling even before the finger 4. That means they did an incursion into our area. All right. They say that they have now refused to recognize this as Indian patrolling point, whereas in ITBP, Indian Army bases already here in this point. Now, this was the first point of dispute. This is a satellite image of Shyok or Galwan meeting Shyok. This is the Galwan Valley, this part. I am showing it to you before to better envisage it, better visualize it. This is the Shyok Valley. Shyok is called so because a lot of people, when they used to traverse along this route, this was an ancient trade route, they used to fall in this river and die. And since it's called a river of death, Galwan is called so because in the ancient times there was a trader, Rasul Khan Galwan. This person went along with the British on an expedition to the Changmo Valley in China. Okay. And due to his adventurous spirit, the British named this entire stretch of 130 kilometers after this trader Galwan. Alright, this is the Galwan actually meeting the Shyok River. So you can see the river valley of Galwan is very, very narrow as compared to the Shyok River. Why is it important for us? You know, if somebody of you have actually visited Ladakh, the Indus Valley or all these river valleys are very, very small, yet very, very narrow and very, very deep. So building roads there is very difficult. And whoever actually occupies this valley occupies a very strategic point when they want to attack the army. As I just told you, mountain passes or river valleys have always been the way roads for invaders to come inside. So either party or either enemy party wants to actually occupy these strategic locations. So that will become one of the reasons why China actually attacked us. Now this valley was never disputed. It is there on the LAC, but this point or this valley was never disputed. The LAC here is supposed to be clear of any disputes. Now, but what happened in May 2020? Now we'll be doing the timeline. The Galwan Valley, previously never identified as a disputed sector, was incursioned or was infiltrated up to 3 kilometers southeast of the Galwan Valley in eastern Ladakh region. So they came inside up to 3 kilometers. There were incursions in the Pangong Tso area, about which I've already listed the finger areas. Joshimath Harsil area, which is in Uttarakhand or central sector of dispute. Okay. And they also expanded their military bases in Ladakh, about which I will shortly talk about. Because why? Please remember this point. It is a very, very important point in our later discussions. Now, why this all things happened? Some of the reasons are LAC has not been demarcated accurately. Now, even after years and years of discussion, almost 4 decades of discussion, we still do not know clearly about the LAC. The protocols made over contested territories are not being followed as laid under the Border Development Cooperation Agreement of 1993. Now, I will explain this point a little bit in detail here. Here, we have signed almost 4 to 5 border development cooperation agreements or peace and tranquility at border agreements with China. One was in 1993, one was in 1996, then we signed in 2005, then in 2012, and then last in 2030. All right. So there were 5 of them: 1993, 1996, 2005, 2012, and 2013. Now, as per the border agreement of 1993, there are 2 primary conditions at the border or the protocols that need to be followed. Within the 10 kilometers of the border, you actually cannot fly an aircraft filled with weapons. You cannot do that. The only aircraft that can fly are which are unarmed, and only they are also allowed till just 1 kilometers on the either side of LAC. They cannot come close to the LAC to actually avoid any flare-ups. So I think some of the protocols must have been followed so that no bullet has been fired on this border up till now. But it happened now because somewhere the protocols were broken. And we will discuss it in the coming slides in the video that where was this protocol broken. The second part of the protocol was they will never have a huge deployment near the LAC, just to have act as a confidence building measure that no party is actually escalating or doing in aggressive engagement with the other party or provoking the other party to raise its artillery or weaponry in their part of the LAC. So these protocols were already laid down. But in the current flares up, these protocols were both ignored blatantly. I will show you how in some satellite images it was observed that China had a very huge military presence in this Galwan Valley area. Okay. Now, the third thing, there are no maps, only patrol points by Indian Army and ITBP. Please remember this point because the Galwan Valley Standoff actually happened at a patrol point known as Patrol Point 14. So when I will be discussing the timelines and other points, when I'll be telling you about the flash points or the exact Galwan area, we will make use of this point. Again, it is also envisaged that China did this to divert attention from the coronavirus 19 crisis that India is currently facing, and also to create political stability so that companies leaving China do not set up their base in India. Companies have been steadily leaving China to actually set up their base at some other places because China has lost its reputation as world supply chain. Yes, it did overcome the coronavirus crisis to some extent, but the way it handled the coronavirus crisis, the opaqueness it maintained regarding the crisis, and how it let down the WHO member nations has not been very well taken by even the prominent nations and the other nations because the whole world economy has gone into a very bad crisis, affecting the livelihood of millions. Now, we will do a small timeline of the India-China relationships in the past 1 month and what actually led to the Galwan Valley Standoff, where the clashes took place and we lost the precious lives of our soldiers. This is a map taken from the Hindustan Times. All right. Now, let's see. So on May 5 and 6, we actually observed that some troops on either side, they got into scuffles. All right, almost 250 soldiers of the Indian and Chinese army got into scuffles at the Pangong Tso Lake area. So it started from the Pangong Tso area. Now, these kind of scuffles are actually common at the India-China border. The physical scuffles keep happening there on and off basis. Now, May 9, another skirmish actually happened in Sikkim's Nakula area, leaving 4 Indian and 7 Chinese soldiers injured. So, this led to tensions being built up in the Galwan Valley of Ladakh days later. So, this escalation which started in the Pangong Tso Lake actually spread out to the eastern sector also, that is the Sikkim sector, and finally to the Galwan Valley, which had yet not been under dispute. Now, India said that it was not actually obstructing the Beijing's patrolling parties, but Beijing said since it was obstructing us, and that's why these skirmishes happened. What did China do then? China said, okay, let's show them our might. They brought in 5,000 soldiers on its side of the disputed border in Ladakh. India also did the same, but we were a little bit late in sending our armies. May 30. The defense minister says India and China have begun diplomatic military level talks to actually avoid the skirmish. Okay. India's no first weapon use policy, or India's maintenance of peace and tranquil policy, or India's policy of Panchasheel, actually we try to resolve, because of that we try to resolve all our skirmishes in a diplomatic manner. We decided to do it in the same way as we did it with the Doklam standoff, as we did it with the Depsang Plain standoff, or the Chomar Plain standoff back in the years 2013, 2014 and 2017 respectively. We thought this time also, let us do some quiet diplomacy, we'll be able to pull the things back. But during this time, an interesting thing was actually happening. Between June 1 and June 4, we were actually observing that Chinese built-up on their side of the border was actually growing. So the Indian armed sources already knew that they were increasing their strength, and the strength of armies or of troops on the borders is actually a very dynamic equilibrium. It keeps on changing based on the requirement. If the other side is showing aggressive behavior, then our country also starts showing the aggressive behavior. So that build-up was actually being continuously observed. In fact, our Defense Minister Rajnath Singh had been quoted saying to the media that by satellite imagery we can see that China has built up, has a quite built up of army, tanks and other artillery in their side of the border. They are prepping up for something not very good. So this is something we already had the idea. June 6, we started that we should actually lead to a de-escalation plan, because we cannot have this standoff in the Pangong Tso area. So even till then, Pangong Tso was actually the point of contention. Even after, when the top military officers met on June 6, it was a very, very important meeting. It was a 6-hour long meeting, starting at 11:30 am in the morning and finishing at 7:30 p.m. in the evening. Now, even in this meeting, the military officers said two things. First, that you really cannot imagine a solution coming out of this meeting as of now. It is going to take some time. The second thing, China was still intransigent on the Pangong Tso area. They said, we will not go to our previous position back in April. We will maintain what is the status quo right now. We have occupied your position and we will keep it. Because we do not like that you are building a Darbuk Daulat Beg Oldie Road, or DSDBO road, okay, about which I'll talk in the later part of the video. That's why I said remember this place called Daulat Beg Oldie. It is near the Karakoram Pass, and this is the Galwan Valley. This part is the Galwan Valley, this is the LAC, this is the Pangong Tso Lake. So the dispute was here, but the standoff actually happened here, and this is an important part. Remember, the dispute was somewhere else place. However, the actual face-off actually happened at some other place. This is an important part that we need to remember when we will be analyzing this issue. Come June 9, the army officers at either end said that we are actually having a disengagement at the 3 hotspots that we have identified. What were those 3 hotspots? So those 3 hotspots were Patrolling Point 15, Hot Springs area, all right. Finally, the Pangong Tso. They said we will try to actually disengage at these points. Now, this June 6 meeting actually happened in Chushul. And when this June 6 meeting happened, they had identified 4 or 5 points that were in a very debatable state. So there were points 14, 15 and 17. These were the patrolling points. Points 14, 15 and 17. The Chushul area. Okay. And the Hot Springs area. So now they were already doing the disengagement at the 3 hotspots, including, they said, along the Galwan Valley. Now, because as we had observed earlier, on May 9, they were actually started building their troops in the Galwan Valley. Now they said we are de-escalating it exactly after a month. In fact, on June 10, there came a declaration from China that they are actually working on the disengagement. The Chinese media actually confirmed it. So everybody was actually a little bit relaxed. However, in fact, even the army chief said that the situation is under control, because these people on June 10, the army people, both sides the army, on June 10, they had actually had a meeting at point or patrolling point 14. All right. Patrolling point 14 is where the current clashes have occurred in the Galwan Valley. On June 10, they actually had a meeting there saying that they will de-escalate. And on June 15, we have this unfaithful day where our army personnel were killed in the Galwan Valley. Now, let's talk about the face-off. I will explain you with the help of maps where is the area of Galwan. This is the Aksai Chin area, which is with China. All right. This is the LAC, the yellow line, and this red point is patrolling point or PP 14, where the skirmish actually occurred. I will show you how now and why. We have this DSDBO road or Darbuk Shok Daulat Beg Oldie Road. Darbuk Shok Daulat Beg Oldie Road. This is what we have here, right? If you're not able to see the color of my pen, I do not know what will exactly work here, but I'll try red. Okay. This is what here it is. The black line that you see running from Ladakh, stopping between at Durbuk and till Daulat Beg Oldie is an infrastructure that we have recently built. We already had this road. It's a very strategic road because it enables us to move our troops from Ladakh to that air base, which is strategically very important for us because it protects the Chinese entry from the Karakoram Pass. Now, in 2008, we actually renewed this road, and right now we just inaugurated this road. A very recent phenomenon it has been. Why did we re-inaugurate this road? Because this road actually moves along the Shok River. I will show you where. Now, the Shok River actually moves around this path. Okay, this is where the Shok River actually moves around. And here you get the Pangong Tso. So this is this red line here, or rather the yellow line here is actually the Shok. This is the Galwan Valley or the Galwan River. So you can see the Galwan meets the Shok here, as I showed you in the satellite imagery also. Now, this line, this Ladakh road or the DSDBO road actually used to run around, what we say, this road actually used to run around the Shok River. Now, during the times of monsoon, Shok used to rise very high and it used to actually wash off that road. So that's why we built a new road a little bit away from the Shok more into the mountainous region so that the road is not disrupted by the river. The Chinese knew what we were actually doing in all this area and they had a serious problem with it. Why? Because as you can see, this region, the yellow identified region, is very close to the line of actual control, which I am drawing here again with yellow. This region is very close to, or this Daulat Beg Oldie Road is actually very close to the LAC. They had a problem with that. They thought that if India actually builds a very, very motorable road here, they can easily move their troops up to the LAC whenever required. So we actually cannot have business as usual that whenever we want, we can raise our troops and, come into the LAC side of India and then attack them. Now we can't do them. India is getting very powerful. So what did they do and what did we do? And why did the clash happen where it happened? Now, coming to that point, the clash actually happened almost 8 kilometers near the LAC. All right, once there is a confluence of the Shok and the Darbuk, so it met 8 kilometers away from that point where the Shok meets the where the Galwan meets the Shok. Now, why did it happen that way? So as we were telling you that on June, when there was June, the military commanders said that we are having a disengagement. But Indians said they were not giving out an official statement. Why? They still wanted to check whether China was doing it or not. So that distrust has always been there. So they said, let's take a small verification army and actually go and check on them. What are they doing on their side of the LAC? All right. So Indian side had already disengaged as per the statements they had given in the media and what they had promised to China. So they went along this road, the DSDB road, to this point where Shok meets Galwan, and to cross Shok, to go to the point near the LAC, you have to cross a bridge which was inaugurated recently in October 29. It is called Colonel Chivang Rinchen Bridge, named after or called after the Lion of Ladakh. Chivang Rinchen, Colonel Chivang Rinchen is actually called Lion of Ladakh. This bridge has been made in his memory. It's a very, very strategic bridge that can take our military transportation over that bridge and cross Shok to go to the LAC easily. Now, this bridge is at a height of 14,000 feet and it's a 1400 long feet bridge. So the army crossed this bridge, they went to the LAC to check upon the Chinese. Now, when they were nearing this LAC point, as you can see, the LAC here and this flashing point here is very, very near. When the Indians went there, a small verification party went there, almost 20-30 people. They checked and they saw that inside this whole valley, the Galwan Valley, this part, Chinese had a huge military presence. Instead of backing down, they had actually built up a huge military presence and they were actually planning something nasty. And that's where the scuffle began. And a few soldiers actually fell into Galwan, which has sub-zero temperatures. So if you fall into a river which is already freezing, there is hardly any chance of you living. And the rest of the soldiers were killed in the physical scuffles by the Chinese military. And that's where the entire Galwan face-off happened. Now what? And what are some other important facts about it? Why was China doing it? Why did we lose out here? So was Pangong Tso just a distraction for us? We need to answer all these questions. So talking about that. Now, as you can see, this is the Galwan River here. I'm drawing a red line here. All right. I will also draw a yellow line here so that you can see it better. This entire Galwan River is here. Chinese had a post here, a little bit back. Then they had another post here, which is the base of PLA. Chinese road is visible till this area. All right. Very close to the LAC. They have built all their highways and their roads. So that means they can easily bring up their troops here. And that was the reason we were actually building this road, so that it's easy. We are able to cross the LAC and we can protect our borders. Now, China also has a PLA Hevitan base, which is only 48 kilometers from the LAC. All right. Now, Chinese, what they actually did was they were having military built up till here. When we see in the satellite images, we could see that they had this military built up here. India on its part did not have any significant military built up here. They were still disengaging. All right. Now, and that's where the flashpoint happened. This is the Shok River and this is the Galwan River. So here very close to the LAC, this confrontation point actually happened. Now, as you can see here, why this entire thing happened, what happened, why not happened, can you see in this satellite images, this entire area, this area is full of crests. All right. Crest means the points are very high up on the mountains. So if on this area, this is the LAC and these are the high mountains. So if the Chinese army actually ends up occupying these high mountains or occupies our part of the territory till the bridge that we have built here on Shok, they will have a very easy access to us, right? And they also wanted to, they already occupy this high area. Now they also wanted to occupy this high area, because in strategic, the wars are not won by military alone. It is won by strategy. So their strategy was to actually occupy these mountains on our side of the border. And that's why they were planning a stealth operation on their side to actually surprise us and come inside. Now, this brings us to a question that Pangong Tso was actually just a just a mirage to play off for India, that we thought, okay, Pangong Tso is the only disputed area, so we should resolve that. And we were actually more planning our troops and our strategy around Pangong Tso. And then they'll surprise attack at Galwan. Alright, so maybe their actual target was Galwan only, but they were pretending, or the moats or the motorboats or the standoff at Finger 4 was just a pretension. That might be one of the things. So it is often done when armies want to occupy each other's bases. In fact, if you remember the movie Border, it was actually done by the Pakistan army. We had sent our troops to some other position, but the battle happened in Logewala. Alright, now, so what happened next? This standoff happened. There might be other reasons why this actually happened. So once again, China actually bet India in the deception game. They again deceived us, saying they are not doing anything, and that's what they end up doing. And still, they haven't come out in the open telling them about their side of the fatalities. They are still not giving any explanations. And in India, how we have proceeded is the Prime Minister immediately called a meeting of all the political parties at 5 p.m. today, so to discuss the further course of action. And so far, what has happened, I will tell you one by one. So, in June, when this whole thing actually happened, that is yesterday and day before yesterday, around 8/4, our Indian Defense Minister tweets condolences about the soldiers. China says it does not want any more clashes. Whatever happened, happened. India then starts waiting Modi's response to Ladakh killings. India-China armies still wanted to talk about diffusing tension. Today morning or yesterday morning, Modi said, our Prime Minister said, sacrifice of soldiers won't go in vain. China said that it was concerned about India building road along LAC. Okay, it does not want any infrastructure along the LAC. It considers as a point of aggression, whereas it also has its own Xinjiang Tibet highway. Alright, when it built a road, when it gets in its artillery, it is considered to be valid. It says they are just doing it for developmental purposes. Xinjiang Tibet highway. But when we do something, it is considered as an aggression. Now, Russia welcomes China-India contacts aimed at de-escalation. We still want to diffuse the situation. India-China foreign ministers discuss border clash. European Union asked India-China to show restraint and talk. We cannot have another war in this kind of crisis. Russia, China, India postponed video conference. You cannot talk to your enemy, at least somebody who has hurt your own people. China demands India punish those behind the clashes. China is still saying that you should go and investigate it from your side what exactly happened. They still do not take responsibility for what has happened on the border. Protesters attempt to gather at Chinese embassy in New Delhi. There is a rage across the nation. We already have a lot of distrust of the Chinese, and especially after the coronavirus thing, China has completely lost trust of the Indian people. So from Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, we have become Hindi Chini Bye Bye, or Tata Bye Bye to trust. Now, contact between Indian military has already been put high alert on border. Contact between India and China is sign of optimism. We are still trying to talk to them. Meeting of major generals at LOC or LAC is inconclusive still. The generals again met for the 6th or the 7th time. An analyst says that India was ill prepared to deal with assertive China. As I just talked about it, maybe they again deceived us. In the name of disengagement, what was promised, they actually flared up in another part of the border, when they were actually just pretending that the dispute was at the Pangong Tso area and finally attacked us in the Galwan Valley area. This is a very, very tactical maneuver that usually happens between enemy nations in times of war. Indian Foreign Minister says clash will have serious repercussions. We have actually warned China this time. We will not tolerate this, but let's see what India ends up doing. Indian officials praise soldiers Obviously, everybody around the nation felt deep condolences for the soldiers that lost their lives on the border. Global Times editorial accuses India of being encouraged by US. Now, this is another thing which has come. So, we were actually quite confident that since the US decided to intervene, it was in news that Trump decided to intervene between India and China and sort out the issue. We were quite confident that maybe we have actually scared of the Chinese dragon, but that didn't happen. Trump has no formal plans to mediate border dispute. When once this news came in, the spokesperson from the US ministry said, no, we don't have any formal plans to do anything. Unless you ask us to, we will actually not do anything. India border tension has actually become a new flashpoint in South Asia, which is already reeling under a lot of war pressures, a lot of hostility. This entire subcontinent is mired in hostility. So let's see what's next. What are the concerns and the way forward? For India, it does not want China to dominate the ridge area. If it does that, it will occupy very, very strategic positions. Yet, India says we will try to resolve it diplomatically. But this time, I believe India will not stay behind and we will give them a fitting reply that you actually cannot come inside our territory and come our people. You cannot deceive us in the name of disengagement. China on its hand says that we do not want India to build up infrastructure. But yet they still agree on the diplomatic talks should be initiated. So let's hope better sense prevails, the situation calms down and both countries restrain from any such kind of activity on the borders, because in the end we lose costly human lives at each side of the border. With that, I would like to close. This is my Telegram group link for current affairs. All right. And this is my Telegram channel for current affairs and science and technology courses that I take on Unacademy Plus. My science and technology course covers all events, important science and technological developments between May 19 and May 20. The first lecture of my course is actually free, so you can go and check it out. The special class is free. Please use my code Siddhi Bangard at Unacademy Plus to get your subscription and get an instant 10% off. It's the best time to join us because a lot of your peers are already with us. So this time, if you take quizzes and live classes and everything, you will have a very healthy peer group to compare yourself with. With that, in both these group and channels, I post my upcoming videos, and in the group, you can actually interact with me personally. All the best. And if you like the video, please subscribe to our channel. Let's crack UPSC CSE in English. Also hit the bell icon for more notifications from our side. And whenever you choose to take an Unacademy subscription, please use my code Siddhi Bangard at Unacademy Plus and get an instant 10% discount. With that, thank you folks. Have a very good evening.